Welcome to the Q2 2019 Storage Town Hall. Parts of this presentation have been pre-recorded to ensure the best possible sound quality for everyone who's listening. After the pre-recorded section, we're going to move to a live Q&A. As you're listening, if you have questions, please send them in by email to ask@storj.io, and we'll be taking your questions live at the end of this presentation. I'm going to now read a forward-looking statement. This document contains forward-looking statements about our product direction. The development, release, and timing of any features or functionality described for our products remains at the sole discretion of Storj Labs. The information herein is not a commitment to deliver any material, code, or functionality and should not be relied upon in making purchase decisions. Our topics today are executive summary, product update, storage node operator payments, a token report, marketing update, and community. Our speakers today are Sean Wilkinson, Founder and Chief Strategy Officer, Ben Golub, Interim CEO and Executive Chairman, Brandon Iglesias, Product Manager, JT Olio, Vice President of Engineering, John Sanderson, Vice President of Marketing, John Gleason, Vice President of Operations, and myself, Jocelyn Matthews, the Community Manager at Storj. We're going to go now to an executive summary by Ben Golub. Ben, take it away.
Thank you, Jocelyn, and thank you to everybody on the call. This has been a very exciting quarter. As you know, we're trying to do something that's really unique in the industry. Anytime you launch a storage service, it has to be durable, performant, and secure. There's a whole new set of challenges when you do cloud storage, and an even greater set of challenges that are there when you're trying to do something that is decentralized, which has never been done before successfully in the industry. We're very excited by the progress that we're seeing, not only in being durable, performant, and secure and Amazon S3 compatible, but also in being able to deliver something that gives superior economics for our users, for our storage node operators, for our partners, and for Storj as a company. This quarter, we've seen great cadence. We've hit all of our milestones, both our Vanguard and our Beacon releases, and we're now on the cusp of our first public beta. In conjunction with that, we've also seen significant activity on the demand side, great progress on our open source partner program, DApps, and large user trials. We're now at the point where we're seeing multi-petabyte opportunities coming to us, and so we're very confident that if we build it, they will come, and they'll be very excited by when they come. We also grew as a company to 48 people, including getting some of the greatest concentration of decentralized storage expertise on the planet. We continue to make our storage node payments on time. We've been better than planned on finances and continue to lead the crypto industry in terms of external communication, transparency, and governance. Q3 is a very important quarter for us. We not only want to get to the point where our code is of production quality, but we want to make sure that the network is of production quality as well, which honestly means time and experience running. Brandon will be up in a bit, and he'll be talking about both our Pioneer 1 and our Pioneer 2 public betas and what we're hoping to achieve with them. And if those both go well and we achieve all of our goals, we'll be set up for the launch of our production service, our Voyager, at some point in Q4. Of course, we're going to continue to push on governance, continue to push on partnerships and sales. Again, it is incredibly unique and gratifying to know that we have multi-petabyte opportunities that are waiting in the wings. And so I'd like to end by thanking everybody who helped us reach this, our employees, our partners, and most importantly, the members of the community, our storage node operators, our code contributors, and especially our users for helping us to reach this point. And with that, let me turn it back to Jocelyn.
Next up, we have a product update from Brandon Iglesias, our product manager here at Storj. Brandon?
Hey, thanks, Jocelyn. So as Ben mentioned earlier, we've been working diligently on our first beta, but let's not forget we just launched one of our major development milestones, which was the Beacon release. And we did add one development milestone onto this graphic, which is the only thing that has changed since we started using it. But all in all, we seem to be in good shape for our development milestones. So our Beacon release is what we're currently in, and it's a really important release because we added the ability to share files, folders, and buckets via macaroons and hierarchical encryption keys. This is really important for clients sharing data with each other. And then our tardigrade users should expect for the network to be backwards incompatible, and they should expect network wipes since it's still in alpha. Storage node operators should expect business as usual. They're going to continue to get paid, but there is one thing that they should look out for. We're going to have frequent updates during this time period, so please stay up to date with our software updates for storage nodes. After the Beacon release, we have Pioneer 1, which is our first beta. The key distinction between alpha and beta is that when we go into beta, we're going to be backwards compatible, and we're not going to have any more network wipes. That's one of the major things that you need to be aware of. At storage nodes, everything will be the same. But in terms of what Pioneer 1 gives our users, we're going to be adding C bindings, invoices. Storage node operators are going to get garbage collection and a storage node operator dashboard, which John Gleason is going to show you later on. And our partners are going to get value attribution in their referral program. This is just a small subset of the features that we're working on for the Pioneer 1 beta. But after Pioneer 1, we're going to be launching Pioneer 2, which adds some more functionality for our users, such as storage token payments and multi-part uploads, and then automatic updates, Graceful Exit, and a notification system for the storage nodes. But the key distinction between Pioneer 1 and Pioneer 2 is that Pioneer 2 is when we're going to be measuring our SLAs. So clients should expect extremely high levels of stability and durability, and this is really when we're going to gain the confidence and the experience that we're looking for on our network to ensure that our clients don't have any kind of data loss or any kind of outages when we go into Voyager and launch into production. So just a quick recap. We're currently in the Beacon release. We're going to be launching Pioneer 1 in the next few weeks. After that, we'll go into Pioneer 2, where we're going to gain confidence, add the last bits of functionality we need for Voyager. And then once the network has hit the durability and level of confidence that we want, we'll be launching our Voyager, which is production. So on that note, I'm going to send it back to Jocelyn.
Next up, we have Storage Node Operator Payments with John Gleason. John is our Vice President of Operations. John, please take it away.
Thank you, Jocelyn. One theme that you'll hear consistently throughout this presentation is our need to grow our storage node operator network. We have an aggressive goal for the Pioneer release that is going to need some pretty rapid growth. We're looking to get at least 4 times the current number of storage nodes, but we want statistically uncorrelated nodes, and not only does that mean more storage nodes, but more storage node operators. And we want high uptime, high bandwidth with no data loss. But the good news is we're willing to invest in growing that relationship and growing that network. So similar to everyone's favorite rideshare apps, we've rolled out surge pricing. And just like surge pricing with Lyft and Uber, where you have to actually drive to take advantage of surge pricing, you need to run a storage node and you need to run it well. As far as the details of the program are concerned, first, as a big thank you to our V3 storage node operators who joined during the early alphas, we're offering 5 times the normal payout for at least the next 3 months. And of course, to attract new high-quality storage node operators, for those who joined in July, we're going to offer 4 times the normal payout for at least the next 3 months. And hopefully the combination of these 2 programs will help us achieve the targets that we've set for network growth. So speaking of storage node operator compensation, I'd like to provide a brief update also on storage node operator payouts. We've been managing to a storage node payout SLA for the last 8 quarters. The details on that SLA are, in the first week of every month, we aggregate the pay information across satellites and prepare for payouts. And then the second and third week every month, we complete those payouts. For the last 8 quarters, we've met or exceeded the V2 payout SLA. And for the last several months, while V3 has been in operation, we've met our SLA every single time. With beta in production, we'll continue to meet or exceed those SLAs. And of course, for each payout, we'll use a unique payout address per payout period to help you track when payouts begin and end. Now, in terms of payouts for operating multiple storage nodes, we do support that. And so if you have multiple invitations from the waitlist to operate multiple storage nodes, you can go ahead and register those identities and operate those storage nodes. We ask that you operate 1 storage node per hard drive, disk, and processor, and don't try and run multiple hard drives on 1 storage node or multiple storage nodes against a single hard drive. Bandwidth is going to be the thing that determines your multiple node strategy and whether it's successful or not. If you have high bandwidth, you may be successful operating multiple storage nodes, but if you're in a bandwidth constrained environment, a single storage node will still remain your best strategy. And finally, there's one more thing we wanted to share with the community, and that's a preview of the upcoming storage node dashboard. This is a new UI that's been in process for a while, and it's going to be released in the next 3 or 4 weeks or so. This UI will give storage node operators better access to the information they need to manage their storage nodes, determine the number of satellites that they're working against, and ultimately manage the profitability of their nodes. So that's all I've got to share. Jocelyn, back to you.
Next up, we have the token report with Ben Golub, our interim CEO and executive chairman. Ben?
Thank you. Well, welcome to what I hope is the most boring part of this presentation. As you know, we are a decentralized storage company first and a crypto company very distinctly second. It's our belief that if a company is talking about tokens and it's anything but clear and transparent and predictable, something's going wrong. So with that, as you know, over the past several town halls, we've talked about the work that we've been doing to be leaders in token governance. This includes work that we've done on the people side, communication side, cryptographic controls, as well as external reporting through our token report. And we've also detailed what we've been doing around insider trading and the time lock. Now for the third quarter in the row, we're presenting our token balances and flows report. This again should make it very easy for you to understand where the tokens came from and how we've been using them. No major changes. 75 million tokens were released in the initial token sale back in 2017. We set aside a number of tokens for conversion, and at this point we're seeing very little activity from our converter. So we believe most of the SJCX that are going to be converted have been converted. This quarter we used 2.7 million tokens in our operations, and we expect that number to go up significantly as we go into production launch. We have 43.7 million tokens left in our operating reserves, and we continue to have 245 million tokens in our long-term 8-quarter rolling time lock. One major change which happened after the end of the quarter, but which is now visible in the blockchain, is that we took 1.5 million tokens from our operating reserves and put them into a long-term time lock. Those are being transferred to a service provider in conjunction with the cleanup from items from 2017. And for those of you who like to trust but verify, you can see that we have been following our pattern of time locks, where we take our 245 million tokens, we divide them into 8 equal-sized tranches, sign for successive quarters over 2 years, and when one token tranche becomes unlocked, we relock it for another 2 years. We've committed to letting you know in advance, at least one quarter in advance, if we're ever going to break that pattern. We've followed that pattern for the past 2 quarters, and we have no intention to change that in Q3. And again, here's all the information if you want to verify what we've told you, including the size of the tranches, when they expire, and the fact that we've conducted 2 successful re-signings so far. With that, I'll turn it back to Jocelyn.
Thanks, Ben. And for those of you who are interested, you can also view the time lock graphic on our website. We have it on our blog. Next up, we have the marketing update from John Sanderson, our Vice President of Marketing. John?
Thank you, Jocelyn, and hello, everyone. As we are finishing our latest alpha release and moving into beta, I wanted to address ongoing questions we've been receiving about our waitlists. Tardigrade, which will be the SLA-backed service built on Storj Labs, is what we're taking into the market for developers for their cloud object storage needs. And like all major cloud storage providers, we will be watching and metering the inbound demand for storage space, especially for those larger clients that come in. We've already had a few potential clients asking us if we could store over 20 petabytes of data storage. And as you can imagine, we need to ensure we'll have enough storage available. To do this, we'll be maintaining and relying on waitlists for both sides of our business until our engineering team feels we've hit critical mass. For storage node operators, we're going to be building a dedicated auth token page on storj.io that will help us control new node creation. When we are in need of more nodes, it will automatically issue a token. When we are throttling them, it will give an estimate of how long it'll be before your token is likely to be issued based on our current growth rate. As of the past weekend, we have issued tokens to everyone on our node waitlists. Please make sure that hello@storj.io is on your safe sender approved email list. We've also begun sending out alpha invites for our tardigrade developer waitlist, and we'll be increasing the number of daily invites like we did when we bootstrapped storage nodes. For the purposes of stress testing, these alpha accounts will have a 25 gigabyte limit as part of this alpha phase. When we begin production and launch our network into enterprise, we're offering the first 10,000 developers who activate their account the equivalent of 1 terabyte of storage and 330 gigabytes of bandwidth for their first month. We're also excited to invite and engage our community to help us finalize our new mascot for Tardigrade. Our senior designer, DJ, who's been responsible for new designs on Storj.io and Tardigrade.io, including the new Tardigrade logo, has written a blog post with a link to vote on the new mascot. We are bringing and keeping brand attributes like durability and resiliency among many others, to these mascot variations. Thank you so much for your involvement and passion for our project as we prepare to launch our enterprise cloud storage service. Back to you, Jocelyn.
Great, thank you so much. I want to just introduce myself. I'm the community manager for Storj, and what that means is that I run the technical community team, live events, and also developer relations, such as evangelism, roll up under me. So what that means is to the community, I represent the company, but inside the company, I represent the community, and I help to facilitate that conduit. When I first came to Storj, it was with the mandate to grow a vibrant ecosystem that will eventually sustain tens of thousands of community members. So I spent a lot of time listening and watching for patterns. And I'd like to explain what that means to those of you who are listening. So let me just dial back for a second to talk about the community itself. Many of you know that when Storj started, it was a what-if idea by our founder, Sean Wilkinson, while he was in college. So if you're a longtime member of the community, it's likely you've interacted with him significantly. Sean's energy and devotion are really he's the soul of the company and an indelible part of its DNA. The company did attract attention. As it continued to grow and change, we realized a few things. And one of those things is that the definition of community is broader as we continue to evolve. So in the beginning, it was enthusiasts and storage node operators, but now it's broadening to include all of those people, plus people who are contributing to our code base, our partners, our open source partners, and of course, developers of all different sorts. So one of the biggest patterns I noticed was that there is a demand for information, and we have a lot of information, and we need to be able to get it to you in the fastest and most useful way possible. So this sparked a dialogue in the company. Sean, our founder, Ben, our CEO, JT, our vice president of engineering, and a lot of the engineers here have really strong roots in open source, and they all bring in their own experience and perspectives that are very role specific. In addition to that, several of our original moderators now work in the company. So we have brought them in-house, they work here full-time, and they manage, control, and create significant pieces of the business across a span of teams. We have people who came out of the community who now run parts of operations, who run parts of engineering, who run parts of strategy. And you may know them they're by their handles, which are H.E. Unwind, Little Skunk, and Stefan Benton. So I just really wanted to be sure that you know that they are part of the company now, and but they're all still really active in the community. So what came out of this dialogue was that we're opening communications even more and strengthening ties even more, and that's taking several forms. One of which is we are taking our engineer conversations into the real world. So we have moved our architecture discussions into the discussion area, and we're openly and transparently having conversations that we're inviting the community to be part of and to actively participate in. We're also starting an AMA series, Ask Me Anything, which will be a monthly series that we're trying out for a quarter. And we would really love to have you engage with our engineers. In addition to that, we have also changed some of the ways that we are running the engineering. So we have an on-call engineer whose specific duty it is to be an available resource to the community. So when situations come up in the community that people would like assistance or information about, what that means is that we always have a designated point person that we can escalate issues to and talk to, and they're available to always try and get you the best information as quickly as possible. I can't guarantee that you're always going to love every answer that you get, but we're making the best efforts we can to get you the right information as quickly and efficiently as possible. So one of the outcomes of that is that we are going to be sunsetting Rocket Chat over the summer. And Rocket Chat is the area that most of us are familiar with where conversations have been happening. And we are moving to forum.storage.io. It's in preview mode, but we're nurturing a core group of loyal and active community members. It has trust levels, spam control, and the ability to mark items as solved. We're very excited about that because it means that when people get a really good answer to a question, we can mark it as a solution and you can search on those. So it will continue to become easier to get the best information all the time. You can go ahead and make an account now and start building rep. And again, that URL is forum.storj.io. And the other ways, if you want to deepen your involvement with storage and tardigrade, there's always something that you can do at whatever level you're at. So we have a mix of help wanted and good first issues with bounties available on our GitHub. We're always looking for people to become more involved in the community. We actively sponsor meetups. If you're out there and you have a meetup and you would like some swag or you'd like some sponsorship or potentially a speaker to come, let us know and I'll help you. I'll set it up. Beyond that, just the usual. Follow us on social. We have the Twitter. We have the forum, and we'd love to see you there. So moving on to the Q&A section. Before we dive into our deep well of questions, I would like to know if we can get a joke from Sean Wilkinson in the grand tradition of storage town halls.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of the things that, I don't know how we started this, but I've become a storage stand-up comedian. We do some jokes in front of our all hands, and it's met with a lot of chuckles and a lot of laughs. So I was asked to add this to the town hall, so I have a kind of storage theme joke for you guys. So why was the computer tired when it got home?
I don't know, Sean. Why was the computer tired when it got home?
Because it had a hard drive. But I'm bummed. Sorry for my terrible joke.
This is how people know that we actually are broadcasting live. The wails of pain could not possibly be fake. Thank you, Sean. That was a great joke.
You're welcome.
Let's move to the first question. So we've been collecting these questions ahead of time, and we try to collect them into groups as best we can, but we also have questions that come in live. If you have questions that are coming in, send them to ask@storj.io. And we're going to be adding those in as we go. So first we're going to handle the ones that we collected ahead of time. So this first community question is, I have a Linux EOS distros mining rig, and I've thought about running a V3 node. Is it possible?
Yes, it is possible. I'm actually running that as well for my mining rigs. It's Ethos is Linux based, and you can install our software with it. You can install the software, and you can install Docker on it. So it is possible, yes.
Thanks. Next question. In recent weeks, there's been a lot of talk about uptime requirements and disqualification. Currently, there's no way for someone running a node on the residential internet connection to tell if they've been or if they're at risk of being disqualified. This person's wondering, is there a way of adding in a visual indicator of someone standing in the network in the dashboard or the logs? And I'm going to kick this question to Brandon Iglesias, our product manager.
Thanks, Jocelyn. Yeah, I'm actually really happy that someone asked this question, because as a part of our Pioneer 1 release, which is our next major development milestone, we're going to be introducing the storage node operator dashboard into the storage node software. So when you're running your storage node, you're actually going to see a URL that's going to be a local URL, and you just click on that URL and you're going to have a graphical user interface that gives you statistics about your node, such as your uptime, your audit failures, how much storage you used, how much egress you used, and that graphical user interface is only going to grow over time. So we're going to be adding a lot more functionality into that. So expect to see that what we're calling the snowboard in the next few weeks once we launch Pioneer 1.
Great, thanks. We have the next question here. Let's go ahead to that. And the next question is, could you share some stats about the scale of the current network and any usage stats or projections? I'm going to toss this one to Ben. Ben is our CEO and interim chairman.
Sorry about that. So again, to clarify, when we're talking about our current network now, we're talking about V3. And of course, V3 is still in test mode. We're growing it very deliberately as opposed to the last time that we grew this. Currently, we are over 1,000 nodes and over 1.5 petabytes. We're looking to about double that by the time we get to Pioneer. Double that again when we get to Pioneer 2, and double that again when we get to Voyager. At that point, we will have what we believe is sufficient capacity to handle the next 3 months of data after that. But we do see from potential customers who've been waiting in the wings several customers and prospects who have well over a petabyte each. So we are expecting that as we launch and grow, we should be seeing tens of petabytes in the near future.
Great. I think that's exactly the information that people would like to hear. The next question is, I started a node on the 29th of last month. What surging pricing can I expect? John Gleason, VP of Operations, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, sure. The way surge pricing works is that for anybody who started a node and got their first piece of data before the end of July, they'll receive the 5x surge pricing, and anyone who starts after that date in July will get the 4x surge pricing. And we're going to run those programs for at least 3 months. One other thing that we should probably mention is that for our stalwart V2 node operators, they'll also the ones who are already registered will get that 5x surge pricing as well. But we are not looking to get additional V2 storage node operators. So there is no surge pricing for new signups, only for the existing ones.
Okay, thanks, John. And thanks for clarifying the difference between the versions as well. The next question is, how can I add a new drive to my existing storage node?
Sure, so that's a great question.
This is JT Olio, our Vice President of Engineering. JT?
Thank you. Sorry. So the major question that I want to ask people when they're asking about adding a new drive to their existing storage node is actually, there's a few things that are worth making clear before then. The first thing is probably the biggest capacity restraint in our network is bandwidth. So please take a look at our storage node estimator in terms of what you can earn with the bandwidth you have available and the disk space you have available, because adding more hard drives won't actually add you more earnings unless you also have the bandwidth to support it, the network bandwidth. So please make sure you're keeping track of your bandwidth usage before you just add more disk space. Secondly, the issue with adding another disk is that you want to weigh, there's sort of two trade-offs that you can make. When you add more disks to the same node, you have a greater risk of one of those of if you have any sort of audit failure or disqualification, you may lose that entire node. And so it's in some cases better to have, we try and target for a node per hard drive or a node per server. You don't really need to do RAID. Because we already have data durability built into our product. And if you're using RAID, you're either increasing the risk of data loss and potentially increasing the risk of a disqualification and losing your held value, or you're increasing the amount of hard drive space you need for an equivalent amount of storage. So RAID doesn't really gain you as much as you would gain by just running more nodes with the same hardware. So we roughly recommend a node per hard drive. And we are at the point where we are inviting people now, if you would like to get more waitlist invites onto our network to add more nodes, please sign up again for our waitlist. And we are now at this point adding follow-on signups. So please sign up if you're interested in adding a new node. At the end of the day, if you do still want to grow your node, your existing node, and add more hard drive space to it, probably the best thing to do is an LVM approach, though I wouldn't recommend that. I would recommend going and signing up for another node for your new hard drive.
Okay, great. Thanks, JT. Let's move to the next question. And this is a question for John Gleason. Is V2 storage share still active?
Yeah, Jocelyn, the V2 network is still active. We still have a number of customers who are using the V2 network. And we do say thank you to the storage node operators who have continued to operate quality storage nodes to keep that experience going as we've worked on V3. As we get a little closer to production, we'll announce the process for moving from V2 to V3. And we're already actively engaged with a number of customers in sort of the planning phases for that. But again, just remember, if you are operating a node on the V2 network, you will get the surge pricing if your node was active before July 29th.
Okay, great. And since we're talking about forward momentum, the next question is, where do you see storage in like the next 2 years or so in terms of price and projects?
Well, let me take that into the two parts then. The first part is on the pricing. So our goal is to always be between a third and half the price. I'm sorry, a third cheaper to half cheaper than the other large cloud providers, the Amazons and Googles and such. And so we'll continue to work with the help of our dedicated community, and I'm sure we'll be massively successful in offering fantastic product at a great price. In terms of the projects, I think we'll see initial success in archival and general object storage use cases. But as the platform matures and new features and capabilities are added, I think we'll be able to address a much wider range of use cases. Everything from compliance-oriented storage all the way through content delivery networks. So offering a CDN service. The architecture is uniquely adapted to some of those things, and I think we'll see a lot of success there. We've got over 10,000 developers on our waitlist and a long list of partners who are just itching to get onto the platform. And so we're expecting fairly accelerated growth and broad usage. Decentralized infrastructure applications are really in their infancy. And honestly, as we see those capabilities evolve and those technology segments evolve, additional combinations of services that become relevant will probably be added as well.
Great. Thanks, John. The next question is, I'm going to paraphrase this just because it was a little bit long, but this is a question that people have, which has to do with how would storage deal with, a small number of users who are going to do something bad, like storing illegal or copyrighted material on the network. And they'd like to know what our response and how we would plan to react to something like that.
So this is Sean here. This is a common question that we get. And it's first noting that storage operates as a zero-knowledge network, right? So we're not going to know what the contents of the data that you upload on the network are unless it's publicly shared somewhere. So if you want to upload your cat pictures or your 100-page manifesto on why every third Saturday should be an ice cream free day, then you can do that. And no one, including us, can view or remove that data. But as you mentioned, there are a small number of users that are going to upload, illegal or copyrighted content and publicly share that. And if that's brought to our attention through a valid court order or notified by law enforcement, then on our target rate satellites, we're going to comply with the laws and jurisdictions, and we're going to remove that material. Now, our goal is to be a decentralized network and be an open network where no one entity, including us, can control or over the network and its content. And so again, we are going to comply with the laws and regulations on our satellites, but there's going to be obviously very different policies between countries and between satellites. So we are going to be releasing a framework to help both satellite operators and users kind of navigate that environment. And we're going to be releasing that sometime in the future as well.
Okay, thanks. Let's go to the next question. And this one has to do with the pricing models. Does a pricing model already exist for your V3 network? And will it work similar to SiaCoin? I think this is appropriate for John Gleason.
Sure. So there is a pricing framework that exists for the V3 network, and we are getting ready to publish the pricing. We do charge differently than SIA or some of the other decentralized projects. Our goal is, of course, to be a developer-friendly platform for storage, and so we charge fixed prices in US dollars, and we provide predictable pricing to customers, which frankly consumers and developers on using cloud products have come to expect. We provide the flexibility to use our token to pay for storage services, providing users with the benefit of a growing token ecosystem. But again, it's a utility token designed specifically for transacting storage and bandwidth on the network.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is another question I'll paraphrase, but the meat of the question is as to whether we're going to have an update for Windows Home or not. Let's give this question to Brandon. And again, Brandon is our product manager here at Storj.
Hey, thanks, Jocelyn. So this is a good question, and it's actually part of the work that we have slated for our Pioneer 2 beta release, which is the release that we're going to be working on after we launch Pioneer 1. So we're going to be adding automatic updates to the storage node software, at which point we'll be releasing official binaries for all operating systems. But there's also an effort within the Docker community to start supporting more Windows stuff. So we know that Docker is actively working on this, and if Docker beats us to it, then we might be able to support Windows a little bit sooner than our actual product roadmap. But either way, it'll absolutely be within the next few months.
Great, that's really good news. Next question is around logging tools. Are there going to be more advanced logging tools built into the storage node software itself? I'm going to give this one to JT, our Vice President of Engineering.
Sure. Yeah. So there's as Brandon mentioned for a previous question, we're building the storage node operator dashboard. And the storage node operator dashboard is going to show a lot of detail to storage node operators about what's going on with their node. There is also an effort that we're working on that I'm going to let Sean talk about showing more network health.
Yeah, so one of the projects that's currently ongoing that we're working on is a bit of a network stats dashboard. So in addition to giving storage node operators really the information that they need to operate and be good nodes, we want to give our users the ability to kind of peer on into the network and how it's doing and how it's growing. So that is a project that is in process, is essentially a dashboard showing a network stats for the entire storage network.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sean, and thank you, JT. The next question is, when it comes to the financial side, will Storj buy back tokens from the market to sell to customers on tardigrade.io? And this is another somewhat common question. So John Gleason, would you like to take it?
Sure. So the storage token is a utility token, and it's designed to facilitate the transaction of excess storage capacity and bandwidth between satellite operators and storage node operators. And if our network is as successful as we expect it to be, with a lot of third parties operating satellites along the network, it's very likely satellite operators, including storage, will have to buy tokens on the open market to compensate storage node operators. So we really look forward to achieving the kind of scale of the network and the complexity of the ecosystem where that's occurring. There are three main things that we can do to acquire those tokens to power the network. We can buy tokens on the open market, as the question indicated. We can offer customers discounts for paying with storage tokens if we need to bring more storage tokens into the company. And then also we can access our operating reserves. And pretty much anyone who's operating a satellite can either buy tokens in the opens market or do the discount as well.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. Let's go to the next question. This is another longer one. So I'll paraphrase it a little bit. And for the sake of transparency, we don't like to heavily edit people's questions, so we do like to let you see them, but we're also trying to speed along. So this question is asking if someone can use the network in a way where they share storage capacity as a storage node operator, and in turn receive 30 or 40% of the capacity back for their personal use. I'm going to give this one to JT, I think. JT?
Yeah, so one of the major benefits about our design of the Storj v3 network is that you can be a storage node operator only, you can be a tardigrade customer only, or you can be both. I think probably the most useful thing to point out about this type of use case, where someone is both contributing storage space on their hard drives and earning storage, and then buying storage space by storing data. Maybe they're using storage to get offsite backup in addition to having excess storage space they want to trade to others. The only real thing worth pointing out is that there is an expansion factor in our network, which is that when you store 1 terabyte of data in the storage network, in the tardigrade network, it translates to 2.5 times that amount of data on storage node operators' hard drives. So for every byte that you store, there will be 2.5 bytes required in the network. So it can't really be one-for-one, tit-for-tat type storage. If you want to be both a customer and a supplier, you'll probably have to supply more than you use. But that said, it's absolutely the case that we encourage people in a lot of different markets to use storage to help have their hard drive resources and needs be more elastic.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's go ahead to the next one. And this question is around financial compensation. So in the case that demand remains low and storage node providers have higher costs than earnings in the beginning, is there any financial compensation in that case? And I'm going to ask John Gleason to take this one, please.
Sure. So the interesting supposition in that question is that demand remains low. So we have over 10,000 developers on the wait list, and we have a number of multi-petabyte partners who are just chomping at the bit for us to reach our production level of service, and frankly, even just the beta level of service. And so we are really excited about the amount of demand for our services. But as we're trying to grow the network, we're absolutely using every tool in the toolkit to build that supply and build the storage capacity to be able to support that demand. And so you're seeing us take actions like implementing surge pricing for a few months to grow the number of quality storage nodes and to keep them interested and active as we're able to put that demand onto the network. Similarly, we're putting test data onto the network as well to also sort of both test and verify the capabilities of the network and the amount of space that we have available, but also to provide a financial incentive to those early adopters who are going to be joining the network in advance of when those demand partners can actually start putting data on the network.
Okay, thanks. Let's go ahead to the next question. I'm going to give this one to you also. And this one is whether the earnings and storage tokens that are held back for long-term incentivization keep the amount as they were earned, or does the amount get adjusted according to the storage token price at the time that the delayed payout occurs? So this has to do with the held amounts.
Sure. So for the held amount, that functions very similarly to the way that both pricing and payouts to storage node operators. So we track those amounts in US dollars and sort of insulate the parties from the fluctuation of the token price as time goes on.
Okay, well, let's go ahead to another financial question. And is there compensation for the bandwidth when the user uploads data to the node?
So I'll take that one also. There isn't compensation for storage nodes ingress bandwidth. In the storage industry, sort of a number of things that are the common conventions in terms of what customers pay for. And what we try to do is align the customer's pricing with what the storage node operators are compensated for. And so in our network, of course, we pay our storage node operators for the static data that they store, and also for the egress bandwidth associated with customer downloads. In addition, we also pay for the bandwidth associated with file repair. So as storage nodes fail and we need to maintain the high durability of files, if we egress pieces off of storage nodes, we'll compensate them for that as well. But ultimately, I'm sorry, one more last thing. Yeah. Our goal is to pass along about 60% of our what we make onto the storage node operators and try and keep that balance.
I'm really glad that you mentioned that, because the next question has to do with passing along 60% of the revenue. So someone out there would like to know what the other 40% is used for. So your coin charges a network fee of approximately 11%. Can you break some things down?
Sure. So that 40% goes to a number of different things. Of course, there's running the tardigrade network. And so we are operating a number of satellites, and we are engaged in activities to drive demand for the network. And so for the cost that it takes to drive that, to run those servers and operate that service and generate that business, part of the money goes to compensate Storj for that effort. And in addition, we also have things like the open source partner program and technology partners, where we share a meaningful portion of our revenue with partners who also bring demand to us. And of course, finally, there's just the operation of a functioning infrastructure as a service company. So Storj Labs itself is funded out of that 40% as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and move on to some technical questions that we collected ahead of time. This one I'm going to give to Brandon Iglesias, our product manager. And someone is asking, do I have to have a static public IP address, or can it change at any time? Either you or JT Olio, I think, could answer this question.
Okay, yeah, I'll answer. So you actually, as a storage node operator, do not need a static public IP address. The major thing that needs to happen with our current release, where we are currently in the alpha and betas, is to require that you set up dynamic DNS. So there are a number of dynamic DNS services that will provide you a public host name for your IP address as it changes. Many consumer routers have support for updating a dynamic DNS service, so that even if your dynamic IP changes, you still have a host name that's reachable. You'll want to configure your storage node to use this dynamic DNS host name so that the network can find it. This is kind of the same sort of experience you would have if you were setting up Tor or other services. In the longer term view, after we've had a few more releases, we are going to upgrade it so that even this step is automatic, and you won't even need to worry about dynamic DNS.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question. Is there any personal data stored in the network that could be used to trace back providers and users by third parties? I think that, Sean, you might be a good person to take this.
Yeah,
Thanks.
so I'll take a bit of this. So we aim to collect the kind of the minimal data needed to effectively run our service, right? So we're really not looking at collecting a bunch of personal data on our users. That's just not useful to us. We're just looking for technical information that it can help the service run better and faster. So you can actually take a look at some of our privacy policies that we have listed at the bottom of our site. So if you're curious to what specific information we collect, that is on our website for you to look at.
Yeah, and you can also look at our storage share information policy. The storage share information policy just lets you know that we collect information related to IP address and network information, traffic information, the node ID, payment details, disk space information, things like that that are required for the mechanics of the operation of the software. But we're not a data aggregator. So we are not a service that offers you some sort of a free ability to use our software, and then we aggregate data from multiple sources and market to you. We are a storage infrastructure as a service provider, and what we collect is just associated with the operation of the network.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I have a question here. I'm going to give this one to John Sanderson. He's our Vice President of Marketing. Someone out here is wondering, why don't you provide a Telegram channel to easily answer questions and collect FAQ from the community and share publicly rather than using emails? I'm going to swing the mic over to you. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. So we have debated a Telegram channel, and there's been a lot of spam accounts created in our name. What we've decided to go do is focus our efforts in our new forum that Jocelyn mentioned at the beginning of this town hall, at the beginning of the QA, where we believe that's the best place to engage and interact with us and ask questions. We do have an integration with our forum and Telegram on the Storj Labs Tardigrade official account. That'll be an announcement-only channel. That way you know that there's no one out there running any scams or claiming to be us and offering tokens on some type of contest, which is pretty rampant around Telegram.
Okay, thanks. So this brings us to the end of, whoops, sorry, one more question. This person appreciates that each satellite is separate and independent in its own right, but it's also a critical single point of failure for customers using it. How can you assure potential customers that their chosen satellite will not have downtime? What technical measures will be implemented to guarantee this? JT?
Thanks, Jocelyn. So this is a great question. I think the most important point to point out with this type of question about our architecture is that a satellite is not a single server. A satellite is more, maybe better known as a trust domain in terms of a collection of servers and services that operate together. Maybe, frankly, a satellite is really a constellation of smaller parts in our nomenclature that all works together to make sure that a user's metadata and a user's account information is all protected and reliable. And so most importantly, if any one of those servers goes down, we use best-in-class best practices for running a distributed infrastructure for that satellite. And so if one satellite app server goes down, that really shouldn't affect you any more than, say, one of Google's servers going down or one of Netflix's servers going down. In terms of just sort of our longer term goal of how to make it so that we're robust and resilient towards kind of any satellite, going down entirely, maybe we lose an entire region or something like that. Kind of the way that we see our roadmap mirrors how the electric car has gone, right? And I think we've talked about this in an earlier blog post that early electric cars, you had the excitement about the electric car, but you didn't really get a lot of range. And so the next step to try and bring electrified cars to the market was the Toyota Prius, right? Which kind of is a midway point. And then the Toyota Prius became a plug-in, and then now we have Teslas, which are kind of the best of all worlds. No one is to the point where we're to the best of all worlds yet, and so we're getting there through the sort of the hybrid plug-in electrified approach. And so right now we're a hybrid in terms of good infrastructure that's for each satellite. Anyone can run their own satellite. Our satellites are run with best-in-class practices for making sure that they don't have downtime.
Okay, that's a really good analogy. Thank you. So now let's answer some community questions. That brings us to the end of the ones that we collected ahead of time, but we did have questions that came in as we were speaking. So I'm going to jump into one that came in through YouTube. And this person would like to know why there's no network reset for Tardigrade Pioneer 2.
Yeah, so actually our last network reset is going to be when we launch Pioneer 1. So after we launch Pioneer 1 in the next few weeks, we will no longer have any network resets for the rest of the life, for the rest of eternity, really. So sorry if that wasn't clear on the slide, but after Pioneer 1, there will be no more network resets.
Okay, great, thank you. The next question is a person who's saying that we mentioned that it's not a good idea to use multiple hard drives for one node. This person's currently using spare room on a RAID 6 array, and they're thinking that that could lead to some better performance and stability. Is this kind of setup not advisable?
So that's a great question. And to just go a little bit more into, certainly for this particular user, we do prefer right now that people use excess storage on whatever they currently have. We're not asking people yet to go and buy new hardware to support. So if you already have something set up, it's totally fine to use what you have. In terms of what type of hardware you do want to set up, it's worth talking about, sort of the different options between RAID. There's obviously RAID 0 and RAID 1 are kind of the extremes where you have either striping or replication. In both cases, it's not really a good fit for storage. In striping, you're increasing the risk that you have of getting disqualified by any hard drive failing. And in replication, you're actually not able to use all of the hard drive space to earn. The way that RAID 6 and other RAIDs work is they use erasure codes. And erasure codes are already something that the storage network is already doing for you. And so RAID 6 may slow write performance some in terms of just the extra work that it has to do, though it does balance across the hard drives locally. The Storj Labs network is already doing that at a higher level. So you're duplicating the effort of the storage network. We probably still have some tuning that we have to do to make it more incentive aligned, but our long-term goal is to make it such that the best thing you can do as a storage node operator is just give hard drives directly to the storage network, and the storage network will do its best to line up the incentives so that's the best thing for the storage node operator.
Okay, thanks. Let's go to a question that came in by email. And this person would like to talk about the business model. So they perceive some issues they'd like to discuss that they think may be pointing to a flaw. If it's not profitable to run a storage node, they think the requirements are too high for a residential farmer to be online 99.5% of the time. And they're wondering about how we weighed out our how we weighed out the options and made the decision to build a cloud service the way that we did, and wondering if it may be feasible to focus more on backup storage at a low cost for customers with less constraints on farmers. I'm going to give this one to Ben Golub because, yeah, thank you.
Sure. So it's a really good question. What I would say is that we've done quite a lot of research on the typical costs to run a residential storage node. And we're very confident that as the network gets to scale, as we start bringing all of this pent-up demand online, that it will be profitable for the vast majority of residential and commercial storage node operators to be profitable, leveraging unused capacity. Now, everybody's economics are different. Some people live in an area where their bandwidth is expensive or very limited, or their electricity is very expensive. So we provided a calculator to help you understand what your earnings potential are. But we're confident for the vast majority of residential operators, this will be a profitable way to use their unused capacity. And with regard to backup versus other use cases, we certainly are providing backup. We're providing consumer level backup. We're providing enterprise level backup. But as we move up the chain, generally speaking, the profitability both for storage node operators and for the network as a whole will go up as we use more bandwidth intensive use cases. So as we move towards CDN, it'll actually be more profitable for everybody.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's go to a question that came in by Zoom. And this person's wondering, what's the projection of earnings per terabyte for farmers? Do I need to clean and maintain my cloud server, or do I get penalized for this if it's once a week?
Yeah, maybe I can just sort of continue on that.
Sure, yeah.
So again, we provided an estimator, so you can estimate what you'll be earning at various levels of capacity and bandwidth. As far as taking your nodes offline on a temporary basis, if you need to do upgrades, that's actually fine. Our network is fine with people taking their nodes offline in a planned way. What hurts your reputation, hurts the network, is if you take it off in an unplanned way. So we have capabilities for people who are operating nodes to do routine maintenance without impacting their reputation, as long as they use the planned mechanism that we've provided.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that. And I think that's another one of those common questions where you have people who really want to make sure that they're doing everything right, and part of that is maintenance. Mm-hmm. And so the key point just being that you need to do it the right way. You're not being penalized for doing the right stuff. You just need to do it at the right time. So we have a question that came in by email, and this person signed up on the wait list after their node got disqualified. We stated earlier in the presentation that all invites have been sent out as of this week, but they say they didn't receive a token. Brandon, can you make a comment about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best thing to do is to contact our customer or support line, and just let them know that you didn't receive your token. Another thing that you can proactively do is just sign up on the wait list once more, and we'll send you a token right away. So sorry about not receiving your token. We'll try and get you one as soon as possible.
Thanks. And for anybody wanting to contact support, it's just support@storj.io. The next question is one that came in by YouTube, and people are asking, when can we see any token price movement? I'm going to give this one to John Gleason.
Sure. So the storage token is, as we've talked about a number of times here, it's a utility token intended for the facilitation of transactions between storage and bandwidth. Now, we've also designed the network so that there are multiple peer classes, so you can actually separate out the functions of people who want to store data on the network and people who want to share excess capacity on the network. And we understand that not everybody is going to use those tokens to purchase storage, and people who sell their storage and bandwidth may want to actually get rid of those storage tokens for something else. So the storage token is listed on multiple exchanges to help facilitate those types of transactions. We're not really responsible or active in any activities related to the value of the token, but on those exchanges, you can check and see what the values are if you are in that peer class or it's relevant to you.
Okay, great. I love the next question. You're going to like it too, Brandon. So someone from YouTube is wondering if it's possible, is someone going to address the node reputation model, and will there be some sort of visualization?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we mentioned earlier in the presentation, we're going to be releasing the storage node operator dashboard, which we call the snowboard. And that snowboard actually has a ton of data visualizations about your storage node. So you'll be able to see your storage node's audit statistics, uptime checks, how much egress and storage space you've used per satellite. So it's going to give you a lot more information, and that storage node operator dashboard is going to continue to grow with new functionality. The version that we're releasing the next couple of weeks is the base, and it has a ton of functionality already. So we're really excited about this because it's just going to give the storage node operators really just a microscope into how their nodes are performing.
Okay, great. Thank you. When will Graceful Exit be enabled? And doesn't this help in giving more hard drive space to an existing storage node?
Yeah, absolutely. So Graceful Exit is actually a feature that we have slated for our Pioneer 2 release. And really the purpose of Graceful Exit is to allow storage nodes to leave the network without losing their escrow amount. We have a great blog post on how escrows are collected and calculated that was written, I believe, by John Gleason. But if you want to check that out, that's on our blog. But if you are a storage node operator and you want to leave the network for any particular reason, you're going to have this feature called Graceful Exit. And essentially what it's going to do is it's going to allow you to transfer the data that you're storing for the network onto other nodes. And then the satellite will update its metadata and keep track of where you sent all those different pieces. So the file's durability continues to stay high on the network. So as I mentioned, that feature is going to be implemented as a part of our Pioneer 2 release. So it's up and coming. And we actually have been working on a design doc for it. So I'm actually going to post that design doc onto our forum. So if you want to read more about it, you'll be able to check it out there.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Let's see, what's the next question? So this one came in by email, and someone would like to know, how do I know if I have a bottleneck on my network or if there's just not enough demand? I think this goes back to what we were just discussing a moment ago.
Yeah. So one of the questions that's worth, always having at your disposal as a storage node operator is sort of more broad system administration tools. If you have a bottleneck on your network, there's certainly things that we can do on our end to diagnose it, but we can't diagnose everything. And so certainly being able to inspect your router, inspect your software on your computer, see if there are other things on your network that are causing issues, are always there's lots of good tools that exist already. At some point, the documentation for the storage node operators, we may be able to provide some recommendations if storage node operators find a certain suite of tools that tends to help them diagnose network diagnostic issues. In terms of what we can detect on our side, we will be exposing everything we can about what data is available about bottlenecks on the storage node dashboard. For the most part, the reputation information that you get on the dashboard will be everything that you would need to know to find out if the satellite thinks that you have a different amount of bandwidth than you think you do.
Okay, great. And I'd also like to mention that if people have feature requests or suggestions, or importantly, if you want to vote up things that are more important to you, the way that we track that and know about it inside the product management cycle is if you go to our AHA. Brandon, do you want to give the link for that?
Yeah, so if you go to ideas.storage.io, you could see all of these really cool features that our community has asked for, and those features are getting voted on, and eventually those features make it into our product roadmap and get implemented. So it's really a great way to see what the community kind of wants built from us and what we're currently working on.
Okay, thanks. We have a question that came in by Zoom, and this person's wondering, could we host a satellite server? If so, when can we apply? What will be required to run a satellite server? I see a couple of people that could take this one, but I'm giving it to Ben.
All right. Yeah. So there are really two ways to think about this. First of all, we are open source software, and so anybody can run their own storage satellite and build up their own storage network. We are running Storj Labs is running a branded network called Tardigrade, where there are satellites that we run as Storj Labs, and where trusted partners of ours run that as well. So we'll be releasing more data on what it will take to join the Tardigrade network, but we are absolutely looking to have people who can run high-quality satellites to do so. As you might expect, there will be pretty stringent requirements to join the Tardigrade network, including sort of your level of expertise and the SLAs that you can provide to the network in terms of running satellites.
Great, thanks. And I guess that all goes back to our pledge of being performant and resilient and secure. It means that tardigrade needs to be pretty stringent.
Yeah.
So the next question is one that came in by email, and this person is asking, when nodes are grouped together because of the same IP by IP filtering, does it get ungrouped when they move to different IPs? So for example, a Snow has a failure and moves to another IP temporarily while their connection is restored, and this other IP already hosts a node. What happens in that case?
That's a great question. There's actually, in the way that our system is architected currently, there's nodes are marked with the node network that they're on. We have this sort of a concept of node network, and node network is something that we're going to continue to refine over time. Right now, it's actually the first 3 octets of the IP address. We basically use a net mask to determine what addresses are related. And that just happens live. So as nodes update, if their IP address change, obviously we support dynamic IP changes, as we talked about earlier. If the IP address changes, that's totally fine. It just becomes part of a new net mask in terms of our database, and it gets selected on its own. So it happens automatically. You shouldn't need to worry about that. Nodes, there's not so much of a concept of actual grouping more than there's a concept of when we select nodes for doing an upload, we try and geographically distribute the nodes that we select by randomly selecting networks as opposed to randomly selecting nodes.
Okay, thanks, JT. This next question is another example of a common type of question that comes through. And we actually love the common questions because we know if a lot of people are asking that just by answering it here, we can get information to a lot of people who need to have it. So thank you for sending it in. This question has to do with operation from home. So this person's saying a lot of users operate from home, myself included. And while there's an incentive to get some used enterprise hardware, we can't guarantee the power and internet connection utilities without large additional costs. And this might get nodes disqualified, in addition to possible hardware failures. In my opinion, if a node is online for 2 years within 99.3 uptime and then is offline for a couple of days, say 2 to 3 days, and is eventually disqualified, is this the right course of action? After 2 years, it's very likely the node has suffered a failure and will return to the network. So again, this is one of those questions that it comes up frequently. There's a couple of people here who could answer it. And I'm kind of looking around the room to decide who I'm going to kick it to. I'm thinking Ben is probably the best person to weigh in on this.
Okay. Yeah. So right now we don't recommend purchasing hardware for the network. For most people, their best place to start is by leveraging their unused capacity. Enterprise hardware won't be helpful unless you have enterprise level bandwidth. I mean, again, as JT said earlier, what we're seeing right now is that most people, the constraint to how much they can earn is bandwidth rather than sort of raw capacity. As far as the other question, which is about going offline, again, there's really sort of 2 ways of going offline. There's going offline, which we understand if you're moving, if you're doing routine maintenance, and we have a way for you to do that that doesn't impact your reputation as long as you let us know in advance. We should also mention that nodes aren't immediately disqualified for unplanned downtime. They're placed into a grace period and your reputation is impacted. However, you can earn your reputation back. Again, if there's something that happens, if your ISP goes out in an unplanned way, of course, you can't control that, but you'll be able to earn back the reputation.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I think that's a really great real-world approach to a real-world issue. We have a question that came in by email, and this person is saying they have the option to expand both their bandwidth and their HDD space as storage grows. Right now, they're keeping things lower because there isn't a big push in alpha for high needs, but as beta and production come, when should we recommend boosting, and is there a benefit or a risk to making oneself bigger? John Gleason, would you like to take this?
Sure, I'll take this one. So I think first and foremost, Ben just mentioned that leveraging what you've got right now is really the best bet. And we're sort of trying to take the Airbnb approach to hard drive space by leveraging existing capacity. Now, what you'll see from us following sort of our initial growth period here, where we're doing things like surge pricing and pushing a lot of data and doing a lot of marketing around the need to get more storage nodes, as we sort of level off and we get to the capacity that we need, when we are ready for greater capacity, we'll communicate that pretty broadly and aggressively. We'll implement, again, tactics like surge pricing or tactics like loading up data or doing performance testing or load testing or those sorts of activities that tend to reward nodes with better bandwidth and, again, better capacity or better performing nodes. And so as you see us doing those things, those are probably good times to make those sorts of changes. And again, we're pretty transparent, so we'll communicate when we're doing those things temporarily and why we're doing them. And you, of course, can always participate in the town halls and ask questions like this. So now's not necessarily the best time to be doing that. But yeah, if all goes well, I think there will come a time in the very near future where that'll be an appropriate thing to do. Okay,
great. Following on to that, I have a question from YouTube, and this is similar to a question that was asked earlier. But if you just give a hard drive to a storage node and that drive fails and needs replacing, how's that going to work?
It depends on the kind of failure. If the hard drive failure is complete, then the storage node is disqualified. It lost some data. And so this is one of the major reasons why we recommend more nodes instead of more hard drives per node, is that if there is a node that has some sort of failure, you'd rather only lose a fifth of your reputation than all of it. So it's definitely better to have compartmentalized reputation in terms of your hardware failures. If the hard drive failure is partial, the Graceful Exit process will allow you to transfer the remaining data off of that node onto a new node ID or a new node that will continue to have good reputation. So just sort of having a compartmentalized reputation and compartmentalized nodes helps you limit the damage to reputation if you have complete hard drive failure.
Okay, thanks. And as long as I have your attention, I have a question from Zoom, which is, what does what does neighborhood size mean? And is that a geographical designation?
Sure. So in the storage node dashboard, we have a field that says neighborhood size. And the neighborhood size on the dashboard is actually a measurement of what's going on in our Kademlia routing table. And so it's probably a little bit more inscrutable what that means for people who aren't familiar with how distributed hash tables or Kademlia works. But that is a measurement of essentially what other nodes on the network are not geographically, but are virtually nearby using the Kademlia XOR distance metric. The main use for us as developers on the storage project is just confirming that the network is working and is healthy.
Okay, thanks. Let's see. I'm going to give a question to Brandon, and then I'm going to give one to you, John Gleason. Brandon, will the snowboard only display data for storage-owned satellites, or will it display for all satellites?
No, this is pretty exciting. So the snowboard is actually going to connect to all of the satellites that the storage node is doing business with. So let's say that there's a couple of tardigrade satellites that you're connected to and storing data for, and then there's another satellite that someone is running on their own, and you're also connected to that satellite and storing data for that satellite. The storage node dashboard is actually going to be able to tell you metrics for your node in terms of each of those satellites. So it's pretty awesome. Another thing it's going to be able to do is tell you how much combined storage space and egress you're using for all of those satellites. So it's going to break it down, and you're going to be able to drill into each of those.
Okay, that's really great. Thank you. I agree. It's very exciting news. There's one question that came in from someone who is a bit of a latecomer. They're saying, oh, sorry, I just tuned in now. Was there any more information in regards to, looks like escrow tokens for people who have recently been disqualified? And I can just repeat that. So this person came in late, so they didn't necessarily hear all of the answers that we had earlier. And for people who are tuning in late, by the way, we are putting the recording on YouTube, so you'll be able to access it later and kind of digest it at your own rate. We also try to put in time codes for the different sections. So if there's a particular question that you remember hearing that you'd like to listen to again or just review, if you give us a little bit of time to go through the material, you'll be able to open the description box on YouTube and go to the timestamp of that particular area. So diving back into the question, it is whether we have any information in regards to escrow tokens for people who have recently been disqualified.
Got it. So I think the question there, when they're referring to the escrow tokens, they're talking about the held amount. And so if you're a storage node operator and you haven't already, please hit the blog. There's a great blog post that explains the held amount process, and also there's a link there to the storage sharing terms and conditions that explain how all of that works. It's worth pointing out that if you don't actually know if you're disqualified, you might not be. And we did undisqualify some storage nodes, basically because some of the technology things that was unrelated to the operation of the storage node itself. And we are continually tuning the system to minimize disqualifications where they probably shouldn't be, and really focusing on things where nodes are either poorly operated or data is lost, right? And that's really what disqualification is for. But for storage nodes, as we implement more technology like Graceful Exit and the sort of voluntary containment mode and the grace periods, those are all designed to make sure that the penalty of loss of held amount is really there to protect the network and not necessarily penalize storage nodes who have inadvertent activities that aren't their fault. So I think you'll see as we're tuning this, the most important thing that you can do is make sure you keep the data. If you delete data to free up more space, you're going to fail audits. And if you fail audits, you're going to get disqualified and you're going to lose your held amount. So again, it all goes back to try and run a really good node and everything's going to be okay. One hard drive per storage node, one processor per storage node. Don't run multiple if you don't have the bandwidth to support it. Keep the data, keep it online all the time. That's what we're looking to see. And the entire network incentive system is built around rewarding that behavior.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
We also have some blog posts that lay out exactly what you need to do to be the best storage node operator possible.
Sure, there's a series of 4 of those from January. So if you just go to our blog, hit my name, and you'll see a series of 4 for storage node operators. And oh my gosh, there's a ton of information in there. Everything you want to know about how everything works from a storage node operator perspective is in those blogs.
Yeah. We try to reduce the mystery as much as possible and give you just the information, exactly what you need to do. And it is all contained in the blogs. So we have a question here that is really similar to the previous ones that we've had. I'm going to throw it out there. If anybody has anything to add in addition to the similar questions that we've already had, this would be your time. Otherwise, if I don't hear, I'm going to move to the question after that. So this question is around SLA requirements for the nodes being too high. They're higher than the SLA promised by the ISP. A short downtime of 6 hours because of internet loss or power outage disqualifies your node. Is that going to change in the future? And they're worrying that residential nodes might be doomed to fail if this does not change. Are there any additional comments?
Yeah, I think John's last answer gave a really good description of that. I should add one other thing. We have, among the many talented people that work at Storj, we have a great data science team, and they are working on giving us the ability to distinguish between a node going offline permanently or likely to go offline permanently or versus somebody who's just suffering an ISP failure. And so as we get better and better at diagnosing that, we'll be able to keep people who sort of suffer inadvertent ISP outages from being penalized.
Okay, great, thanks. Next question. Is it possible to use 2 internet channel for redundancy? JT?
It's currently Yes, actually. The major thing that's important to keep track of is that the address that your node advertises is reachable by whatever routes you want your internet connection to be available through. So as long as someone is able to reach the IP that you're advertising on the Kademlia network with your dynamic DNS configuration, everything should be good to go.
Okay, thanks. Next question, based on your experience to date, do you have a suggested hardware and software setup? Not recommendations necessarily, but just suggestions based on experience and on what you're seeing in the storage network? How about you, John Gleason?
Sure. So, I hate to say the same thing over and over and over again, but if you hit our GitHub and you look to see the operating system we're supporting right now, and you kind of stick to that pattern, those will be your easiest choices from a software perspective. But again, what we're really looking for is people who can hit the minimum requirements that we put in the storage sharing terms and conditions, and we've set those pretty low. But again, the most important things are turn it on, leave it on all the time with good bandwidth. That's going to be your key to success. So right now, it doesn't have to be an aggressive rig like you'd see for more mining type operations. This is really just making the space available and having the bandwidth to support the movement of data to and from your storage node. And so it really doesn't matter what it is. For the most part, use what you've got. And over time, as we learn more about what's the most effective combination and what works best on the network, we'll of course be very transparent and publish that. And again, as the earlier question asked, when the time is right to start adding net new hardware and that makes financial sense, we'll be very, very quick to share that with you.
Okay, great, thanks. Next question is, what's the projection of earnings per terabyte?
I think we had that question earlier, but just to reiterate, We've got a calculator on our website. It's largely dependent on your bandwidth, but go ahead and check out that calculator, and it sort of allows you to figure out based on what the conditions are, what your relative earnings should be.
Okay. And then we had another repeat question, which is someone who's asking about cleaning and maintaining their cloud server once a week and whether they're going to be penalized. We did answer this earlier. So what I would recommend is going to the YouTube once we publish it and going to that particular question, and we gave an extensive answer for that. Here's a question. When I run both the storage node and a satellite on my premises, how does the network make sure that my satellite does not use my storage node? This is a JT question.
It's a great question. So the work that we've done so far to run satellites, for the most part, we haven't really prioritized efforts to co-locate satellites and storage nodes on the exact same server, on the exact same network. For the most part, that's something where, just in general, we think it's a good idea to run storage nodes and satellites geographically separated, dispersed. In fact, satellites in general are something that aren't necessarily even one server. So there isn't any specific logic to make sure that a storage node that's on the same network as a satellite will not be selected currently, just because we aren't configuring satellites and storage nodes to even have that problem. So if that's something that you're configuring, I guess I would just say that that's a great point to add to the ideas portal. And we can prioritize adding some explicit logic to make sure that if you don't want your storage stored on your co-located storage node with your satellite, that we can add that restriction.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing worth noting is that to a certain extent, it probably doesn't matter, because it's not so much that the satellite stores a piece on its own related storage node, but the pieces are stored on unrelated storage nodes. So if one piece is on your storage node, that's a much different risk than if multiple pieces are stored on related storage nodes. And so the way the network is working, it's designed to have pieces on statistically uncorrelated nodes. So if one piece is on your node, what your satellite is smart enough to do is just not put anything else that's going to be at risk. And so that's from a bigger picture perspective, it's probably just not that big a deal.
That's accurate.
Okay, thanks. Are there any metrics in the reputation system that will help select faster nodes for future uses like CDNs and help migrate stale data to slower nodes?
Yeah, so I could talk about this one just briefly. We do have quite a few exciting features on our product roadmap that are going to get us to more of a CDN type of network, and even be able to geographically select nodes within a specific region, such as like a US East or something like that. But in the short term, we're we don't have any specific features built into the network that are going to allow you to select faster storage nodes. The way that the system is architected is that you're going to download your files from a number of different storage nodes. So you're going to be downloading those things in parallel. So it's just inherently going to be fast.
Okay, thanks. Next question. Oh, I think this is a good one for Brandon. Brandon, can someone make a video on how to install and run this thing on Windows? I can't see the next word. Oh, there it is. Not all people are programmers.
Yes, absolutely. As soon as we support Windows for our storage node software, we will absolutely make some videos. Actually, the storage node operator video that we have up on YouTube needs a refresher. So that's on my to-do list. So expect to see a new one in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, great. Thanks. This is again similar to an earlier question. Any plans of support for Windows 10 Home?
Yeah, like we mentioned earlier, Docker has an effort to support more Windows operating systems. So they're working on that. And if Docker ends up supporting Windows before we do, you'll be able to run your storage node via our Docker container. Aside from that, we do have one of the features in the Pioneer 2 milestone is to add automatic updates for storage nodes. So once automatic updates are added for storage nodes, we're going to be releasing official binaries for all of the operating systems, including Windows.
Specifically, it's worth pointing out that the thing that we're waiting on for Windows Home is either that we have our own automatic updating system, or there is a Docker release that supports mounting to the outside file system directly. And that's the feature. Docker runs on Windows Home, of course, but that's the feature that we need to support the storage node working well. And so if that feature beats us to our automatic updates, then great.
And that's also a question that does come up in the community. So thank you. Let's see here. The next question is one that came in through Zoom. And well, let me just, couldn't see that word for a second. Regarding the snowboard, will the web GUI be limited to the local subnet only? Or could a node operator establish a port forward to have remote read-only access should they wish to go that route? And I can repeat it if you want.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Okay.
So, of course, no matter what happens, even if we had our process limited to a local subnet only port, you can always do your own port forwarding with SSH or SOCAT or a number of different tools that allow you to port forward. So, and just in general, our typical system for registering services, I think the Snow dashboard is no exception, is that in your configuration file, you can specify how the port is listened on so that if you want to expose it publicly, if that's something you want to do, you can, though we will have the default to be private.
Okay, great. So the next question is, just to confirm, when a drive fails, you lose reputation and lose money, right? So it wouldn't be better to store on an existing RAID 6 setup. The person is saying this seems like a catch-22 since RAID is frowned upon. GT?
Yeah, so RAID isn't necessarily frowned upon. It's just that it's additionally redundant. So one of the things that we want to do is make sure that the incentives and the tuning of the network as we go forward aligns your amortized cost. And so the concept of amortization, what we want it to be is essentially your overall expected value out of the network is greatest when you dedicate hard drives directly to storage, as opposed to getting RAID. It is true that if you use RAID, you can reduce the risk of some loss of reputation, but it comes at a cost. And the cost is that you have a hard drive or two dedicated to redundancy that you're not earning money from. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that the incentives are aligned such that the value of just turning the hard drives to storage directly outweighs the expected value of the risk.
Okay, thanks. I'm not sure if this one was an email or a YouTube question, but the question is, can I already run more storage nodes today on my different HDs today? How do I apply for that? Give me some email dates. I love the compartmentalized approach. And by the way, thanks for answering all these questions. Brandon?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is just to sign up on our wait list again. I can't really provide you with a specific date as to when we're going to be sending out more invites because it really depends on how much more capacity we want to add to the network. We want to make sure we grow it at a sustainable and intelligent way so that our storage node operators are still receiving large payouts. But we are looking to expand the network greatly, as Ben and a couple of other people have mentioned. So please just sign up on the wait list again, and I'm pretty sure you'll get an opt token really soon.
Yeah, and for people who are listening, I can definitely vouch for that. I report to the vice president of marketing, and when there is an email that is about to go out, we do not lag. If it's nighttime on a weekend, we are on it. We get everything out as fast as we can. So we're going to be getting emails out to people as quickly and efficiently as humanly possible. Next question is, if a node is disqualified, you lose your escrow balance and take a reputation hit. It seemed like some local redundancy practices like RAID are prudent for storage node stability. I feel like this is a ground that we've covered. So if it's okay, unless anybody has anything to add to their previous comments, I'm going to go ahead to the next question. All right, I'm not hearing anything. So I think that may bring us to the end of our live questions. I'd like to just take a quick pause and say thank you to everybody. I know that these town halls are something that we produce every quarter, and we are just so happy and grateful that you tune in and that you engage with us and that you ask us these questions and that you keep us transparent, keep us engaged, and ask these really great questions. It feels great to be able to sit here and talk with you. So thank you so much for being here. Our next one is again going to be in 1 quarter from now, and we'll be sending out the same deal with the emails and the invites and the pre-registration. So we hope that all of you and more tune in next time. If you would like to get in contact with us before then, you can follow us on social. We're on Twitter under Storage Project and under tardigrade_IO. And again, please come to our forums. Our forum is at forum, singular, FORUM, like Mary, .storage.io. And we are actively looking to sponsor events. So if you have a meetup and you want to run a storage theme event, please email me directly. I would love to support you. And if you're interested in contributing to our GitHub, you can see on the screen we have a mix of help on it and good first issue. And if you have something that's more advanced, if you have an idea, get in touch with us. Maybe there's something that we can collaborate on together. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time. Take care.